You are about to see mutilated corpses, burning tank carcasses, and all out mayhem, brought to you by Frontline Fatalities.
What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 73 of Frontline Fatalities, brought to you by the Frontline Network, presented to you by Tommy, and as always, FatalSaint. What's up, man?
What's up, Tommy? Today we have a special episode for everybody at home watching TFN Frontline Fatalities. We got another expert insight episode with a very, very, very special guest. I just gotta say, he's a very special guest. He's basically like the best Company of Heroes players right now. He's won very recently, he won the Most Wanted Invitational Tournament, and he's also the winner of Sunday Night Fight Season 4. And who is that, Tommy?
That can only be the one and only DevM. What's up, man?
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
It's fantastic to have you on, man. I mean, you know, right now, I think pretty much everyone, without a doubt, would place you as the best player in the world because you're just storming through everybody. Last week we had this, as Fatal said, we had the Most Wanted Invitational Tournament, and you didn't break a sweat. I mean, you went through the whole thing, not a single loss.
Yeah, I think I had some pretty easy opponents. I'm not saying that Inverse is bad, but he's definitely not one of the best at the moment. And so the only real game was the finals.
Yeah, and that's actually what we've got here today. We've got one of the games from the finals, which we know, of course, they were live casted by Greatness on the night. But what we are going to be doing, we're going to be taking an analytical look, as always with Expert Insight. We're going to be delving into the deep strategy to find out exactly what goes on in DevM's mind when he played these games, when he played Symbiosis, because, of course, it shouldn't come as a surprise or be a spoiler to anybody to learn that he swept through these final games 3-0. Now, these games weren't particularly short. They were fairly lengthy games, most of them. Well, game 3 was quite quick, but they were still fairly sort of hard games. Were they the hardest games that you played in the whole series, Devin?
I had a hard game versus Senland before this one, I think. But yeah, I think these were definitely the harder games.
So I guess the game against Sandland was a bit of a grudge match after he knocked you out of the last game replays tournament, didn't he? On a game it was around on Longra, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
2-1. That was a real slugfest. I saw those games. I think both games came down to like double-digit VPs. It was crazy.
Yeah, but the games were actually pretty easy this time around, probably because it wasn't language and because I was West that time. But yeah, the game was itself hard because Senlon and myself did a lot of mistakes the whole game, which made it a bit lengthy.
Well, that's fair enough. But I think, without much further ado, we should jump into this finals games because I am really excited to see what actually went on and actually to find out exactly what was going through your head as we did this. So, at the 5-second mark, let's be unpausing in 3, 2, 1, unpause. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, the first thing that struck me, DevM, when I first saw these games, was that there was no, well, for starters, there was no Jeep, and I'd say that you are probably the player who popularized the Jeep to the stage where it became the cool unit to use in this patch. Like, nobody used it in 2.601. Nobody really used it at the beginning of 2.602. But you brought it roaring back, you know, using it to great effect. You know, all these units getting pushed around the place, getting pushed out of cover. MGs getting like blocked. What was it? What one game you played against Symbiosis in another tournament? You totally fucked him over in the first 5 minutes. His MG got stolen. It was crazy. So, but no Jeep this time. What was that decision based on?
Yeah, Symbiosis I know he has a large tier 1s, and Fireball too. They are known for especially large tier 1, which makes the Jeep a bit more useless. I want to have that extra rifle instead of the Jeep to be able to fight the large tier 1. So that's basically why I didn't do the Jeep in these games.
Okay. And also, I mean, I guess the Jeep is sort of a unit that facilitates a sort of a quick win. You know, you can get that really quick MG steal, the really quick Volt kill. I'm sure everybody remembers the game where you played Fireball a few months ago, and I think you had something like a 9-kill Jeep. You killed about 3 full squads with it. I mean, it was absolutely insane. But one of the things
Yeah.
I noticed watching these games is that, you know, a lot of people think of you as sort of the Karate Kid delivering the one-punch knockouts in the first few minutes, but you seem to play these with a bit of a different philosophy. You seem to be playing the long game here. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah. Because in SNF, I had those games before with Symbiosis where it knocked me out, and I had the practice games too. And I saw that the Jeep and the early harassment wasn't working because it just stick to the game and they made no mistakes. And I would actually lose more manpower than I would cause damage to him because of the camping that he does with the MGs. So I just did the same that he does with his US play, which is kind of stall till I have some tech to be able to fight him off.
Yeah, it did seem quite a bit like the way that Symbiosis plays his US. It seemed to be the way you were playing, because you know we've got this first engagement, for example. I mean, how did you want to approach the sort of the opening? Because you've gone for this 2-engineer standard opening, and that's actually a point worth considering, because I know that in recently you finished off Fireball in SNF with a sort of a really brutal 4-engineer build. This time you've gone back to the old 2-engineers.
Yeah, I only do 4 engineers against Fireball because I know that he struggles a lot versus them. I mean, the 4 engineers really give you a lot of potential to fight the tier 1. And I know that Symbiosis prefers to go stick to tier 3. I mean, he goes to tier 3 more quickly than Fireball. I know that Fireball prefers to have that large tier 1 with tier 2 maybe. While as for Simbi, no, so I really don't like go for engineers against him. I only prefer against Fireball, basically because of the tech that Symbiosis prefers.
Okay, I mean that's pretty high level thinking when you're changing every your strategy every game depending on who you're facing. Was this tournament? It was really about, I guess, you know, learning your opponents and sort of working your strategies to fit them. Really.
Yeah, it was more like that, yeah.
So far, what have we seen Fatal as a build order from Symbiosis?
Symbiosis is doing a little bit of a mix starting here. He went Volk MG so far. The second MG is queued up in the Wehrmacht quarters right now, so it's going to pop out in just a few seconds. But yeah, it's a little bit a deviation from the normal double Volk opening. So he still has the 2 Volks, but he threw the MG in the middle of the 2.
Okay, and we've got, you know, we've had these rifle engagements, but no real sort of big flanks, and no real attempts to flank. Sort of just lots and lots of harassment. The only real manpower loss we've had so far is these rifles that got stuck behind the hedge. I mean, so when you played this game, DevM, were you thinking that you were just not going to go for any kind of big flanks? It was going to be pure harassment?
Yeah, I wanted to keep him contained in the munition point and VP on the middle, and try to harass the right side. And at the same time trying to harass his fuel because I want him to keep want to keep him contained at tier 2, tier 1. I don't want him to go tier 3 straight away. And I want to get the upgrades, all the upgrades that I can to counter the Volks and tier 1 units really. So WSC, M8, all this kind of stuff. I don't want him to take too far away from what I want him in. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
so I just really deny the fuel all the time in this game.
Yeah, because you had that fuel decap for a little while, and actually you've got him in a really horrible position right here. He's being forced to dance around with his Volks. They're both quite low health, and you've got, well, all 3 of your rifles here in the center, and with your supply yard coming up now as well. So you've chosen that faster mate. Is that faster mate just to carry on the containment, carry on the pressure for tier 2?
Yeah, because the M8 in this map is really great. You can, because of the road on the big road that leads to the fuel of his base, the M8 can really go through that road very fast and arrest the fuel and go back to the middle and really be in every place at the same time. So it's really a good choice, especially because I know that he was going sniper, and that delays his TR2 even more. So I really went for the M8 to pretty much deny any fuel that he was going to get.
So would the M8 just generally be your your de facto choice when you're facing a big tier 1?
Yeah, I know that Wehrmacht nowadays really goes sniper, and myself, I go sniper too, all the time. I know that the M8 is the best choice because you are going to get that pack a bit later, and if you know the timer, you know what you can do with the M8, the rest that you can do before you get the pack out. So it's really the best choice, I think, at the moment to fight off the sniper and big tier 1 that many of the Wehrmacht players use.
Because I know that that some US players might say, especially with regards to Senwa, lots of flanking routes, that bars might be the preferable choice. What's your opinion on bars in terms of, as a general tech?
Well, I prefer M8 instead of bars, because with bars you take a bit more risks because of the mines that you can fall in, and maybe even that extra MG that you can have that you weren't expecting. You fall a bit in more risks, and since it's a turning game, I really didn't want to take those risks of flanking and losing all my manpower to mines and a huge, big fail flank. So I really prefer the M8 instead of bars first.
And talking of manpower, I mean, you've done a really good job so far, really conserving that manpower. Again, still no big flanks. You're sort of everywhere. You're sweeping a few mines. I guess is that preparation for the M8 to try and get as many mines out the way as possible, and still keeping on the harassment on that top fuel there. So the position you're in right now, I'd say, is decent. Although, I mean, Symbiosis, he's managed to expand quite a bit. He's sort of holding on. He's held on to the plus 16 munitions for a little while. Were you worried at all that the M8 might have begun to miss its window of opportunity?
No. I know that the map control that he has right now is a bit big, and that might be of concern, but that's just normal because I used all my manpower and fuel to tech for the M8, and I really didn't have any upgrades on the rifles, and they, as you can see, have a bit more damage on them. So I guess I was pretty happy with my map control because I did a decent job holding the tier 1 composition that he has with just the rifles. And I knew that his tier 2 was going to be delayed by a fair bit, so yeah, I wasn't quite worried at all that he had all these munition points and whatever.
Yeah,
I just quickly got a comment that I'm liking the engineer combo with the M8. The sweeper engineers. They swept the mine at that bridge. Yeah, they swept the mine at the bridge, but you still went there again, just in case he planted a new mine there, I guess. Just to keep your M8 safe. That was cool. I like that.
You really want to keep your M8 alive in the first minutes. I mean, if my teching was all wasted right now, it would be pretty much game. So I have to be really careful with my M8 at this point.
So at this point, how does your rifle usage change? Are you still going to try and play that harassment game now that the M8's out and just add more to the harassment with the M8?
Well, at the moment, my main fighting force is going to be the M8 because the rifles don't have any HP compared to the MGs and Volks, which means that my fighting infantry force is weaker at the moment. So I really don't want the rifles to be fighting right now, but soon I want to have that infantry force stronger, so I am probably going to take bars now, I think, because I want to consolidate my force, my infantry force. I know that he's going to get the pack out to counter the M8, I know that he's going to probably get a Shrek, and I want to take the advantage of that to make my rifles now my main fighting force. So I'm going to change the fighting force from the M8 to the rifles again.
So it's really just forcing him to get that pack out of necessity, even though, the odds of being able to kill an M8 with a pack on this map are actually pretty low, really, aren't they? Because you can't possibly cover all the important points at once. It's just not possible. The only map where that's really possible is Longra, where you can have one pack in the middle, and that pretty much covers everything. Well, on Senwa, I guess your plan for the M8 now is to just keep on going between his fuel and the middle, and just annoy the hell out of him.
Yeah, that's why the M8 is so useful in this map, and that's why, especially on this map, I like him more because of that road. So yeah, it's pretty much, I would say, the best choice to go.
Would you say it's a good choice for any map, just as a general safe kind of teching choice, or are there certain maps where you just don't think it's very useful?
Well, I prefer sometimes going bars on certain maps, maybe Angoville. You get more of bars early on than the M8. But that all depends also on your opponent and the map control that you have at the moment.
Now that's interesting because I know a lot of people who really like the M8 on Angoville because it's sort of that big hedge split, isn't it? It's, you know, you've got two very distinct sides.
Yeah, but you also in Angoville, usually the Wehrmacht concentrates on one side, while for example on this map he has to go to at least two sides to hold the fuel in the middle, and maybe some forces on the right side. So in Angoville it's a bit harder to make use of the M8 because the Wehrmacht has all its forces in one place, and you got a lot of places to place mines on, which the M8 can pretty easily fall on. So yeah, I guess it's pretty decent if you are in trouble holding your cutoff and you want that M8 to put the Wehrmacht forces back a bit, like you do yourself on Angoville.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this I think what's really admirable is the way that you've managed to keep so much map control while getting that M8 out. I mean, there's a lot of players, and you know, this is certainly me as well. Whenever I try to go faster, mate, I find you know, I lose a lot of that map control while I'm forced to play kind of passively. What kind of advice would you give to the US players who are kind of struggling to get that faster mate to really work for them?
Well, you have to know that to hold the map to get the M8, you have to use well the green cover. And in some ways, it's really easy to do that because, as you can see, you got a little. I mean, you got a lot of green cover in the middle, which makes for a good stalling kind of playstyle. But you also have to know when you can stall and you can't. If the enemy has a sniper there, you can't just stay there. You have to move around. For example, if my rifle now that is on the middle was to get sniped, I would probably have to move the rifle to the right side and the rest to the right side. I have to make the Wehrmacht forces move too. You have to try to do as much problems to the Wehrmacht player as you can, at the same time not losing any manpower. That's basically it.
And that, I mean, you make it sound easy, but of course, you know, that's not easy. Even on a map with so much green cover as Semwa, you know, it's that whole kind of art of, you know, being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It's I guess it's something that just comes with sort of hours and hours of practice.
Yeah, for newer players that's going to be hard to do, but with some practice you'll get there eventually.
So far, we've got the transition into the mid game now, and you've seen quite a bit of veterancy on Symbiosis units. He's gone for support vet and infantry vet. And you've actually, I mean, you mentioned bars a little while ago, but actually we're coming up to the 15-minute mark, and still no bar tech from you. Instead, you went for the Weapon Support Center, and you actually got yourself a supply yard upgrade, which is very, very much like Symbiosis, because he often gets that supply yard upgrade before the bars as well. So just explain that decision.
Yeah, in this game I saw that he placed a lot of mines, and I think I already failed two flanks, or at least one flank, a big one, because of the mines. So the sniper instead of bars is, in this case, a better option because you really don't have to go in to get that pressure. The sniper can stay behind and take the shots. So I prefer WSC also because he went mortar, and I mean the bars would with the MGs, the bars would not have been that much of a great choice. You need the WSC to get rid of that MGs, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, because I believe he went for double MGs, I think, didn't he? So
Yeah, he did.
I mean, just, you know, using those bars, would you say is just quite a bit harder when you've got those double MGs? Because it's not so common actually, double MGs, is it? I mean, it used to be very common. Last patch, double MGs was quite standard. Nowadays, people go for quite a small tier one, the single MG, and then the sniper and double bolts.
Yeah, that's what I personally go myself. it's just one MG, but Symbiosis is like the two MGs, so I have to adapt myself to his playstyle.
You actually got kind of unlucky there. You got that horrible mortar crit where it lands on the M8. It would have been absolutely killer if that had taken out your M8 there. But, you managed to
Good
get
thing
away
there's
from
a
it.
road there.
Yeah, exactly. Good thing the other units weren't able to get there. So you've stolen an MG42. That's a nice big win for you. But even so, even despite that setback and, you know, just generally being pressured quite a lot, I mean, you can see Symbiosis is obviously under pressure because he got 2 packs. One to cover the middle and one to cover the top. So he must have been feeling the pinch from that M8 just constantly harassing him. And now you have the bars after you've had the Weapon Sports Center. Would you say that there's a time where it's just, you know, you have to get the bars, otherwise, you know, you don't have that fighting power?
Not really. You can do the bars anytime you wish. Maybe the early game is the part of the game where you have to be most careful about. But bars you can do it pretty much in mid lane, or mid game or late game. Even though late game they might come a bit late because you want to get that fantasy on the rifles before the late game. But definitely they can be upgraded anytime and they can still be useful.
Jeez, there was a pretty close thing there. Symbiosis just prop ward a couple of your rifles that were literally on top of his sniper. But now you've really applied a bit of a chokehold to him. You've just decrewed that pack with the sniper, cheeky sniper back there. And that pack in the middle is totally gone. The mortar in the middle is gone. I'm sure you're probably going to steal that in a minute. In fact, I know you're going to steal it because I've seen the game. So, yeah, I mean, Symbiosis, he is, you know, even despite this, I mean, he is a player. If we had him on Expert Insight talking about this game right now, I'm sure he'd be saying, oh, you know, it's okay, you know, I'm used to playing from behind. But he's lost quite a few weapons at this point due to your sniper and the M8 and those bars as well, just recently kicked in. So now you're heading into the mid-game. You've probably sensed that there's going to be some serious Tier 2 vet or some Tier 3 tech, one of the two.
Yeah.
And it is, in fact, Tier 3 tech. He's got that Stern Armory up. So what's your move from here now?
Well, since I applied so much pressure on the fuel, I know that his Tier 3 might take some time, so it means that I have still some time. So I want to aim for the AoE for the mid game to keep that pressure and get those lucky shots on Symbiosis, keeping him more fried behind. And after the howitzer, it's pretty much getting all the anti-tank things I can get. And I actually got a pack here, so it means that I can dispense first AT gun of the mother pool. So yeah.
That's a huge win for you right there. I mean, as you say, I mean, you're going for the howitzer now, even though, let's say you knew that he had a Puma or a Stug cooking, would you still go for that howitzer and then just use the M8 to keep him at bay?
Yeah, the howitzer is just a very good thing to have mid-game. You can really do a lot of damage with it. As Symbiosis proved in many games with his lucky shots.
Yeah, I mean, he's done, you know, he frequently did a sort of a super fast Howie kind of, I wouldn't call it a super fast Howie strategy, but it was just part of his strategy was to get that M8, you know, at like 13, 14 minutes into the game, very, very quick, where it could really, you know, hurt a player who just invested, say, into Vet 2 infantry.
Yeah, and especially because I know that I have him in a position that he can't really do much. He can't go to the middle because of the pack now. So his place of holding the US main force is going to be that cutoff, manpower cutoff there. So the howitzer really does a good job at totally destroying that place because it's an open place. You don't really have those much buildings covering it. So it really does a lot of damage, especially in the position that he's in.
Yeah, I mean, I know from having played a lot of Wehrmacht games, it's quite common to get stuck around that strategy point and in between the buildings, and it's really horrible, it's really claustrophobic. You don't have very much room to maneuver, especially if there's like an MG or an AT gun covering the middle, so I can definitely feel Symbiosis' pain here, and there's a lovely counter-snipe right there.
I like the tense moment there before the counter snipe went in. Both of the players knew the snipers were there. Symbiosis took a shot on one of the rifles before it retreated, and DevM took a snipe shot at one of the repairing pioneers, so both players knew that each sniper was basically just standing a few yards away from each other, but it was just who gets the counter snipe first or who gets to light up the enemy sniper first, and this time DevM was on top of the game and sent one rifle there to light him up and get in the counter snipe. That was nice.
I mean, that's going to be a pretty huge win, especially when there's so much tier 2 action from Symbiosis. Actually, this is a bit of a nice Puma block here.
Very nice blocking from Symbiosis, I must say. It caught that M8 completely. It just could not get away for its life.
Yeah, that completely backfired. My plan was to block the Puma.
It looked like you were blocking him, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know you had another pack out, because I thought, yeah, would have taken, or at least pushed the pack out of that cutoff by now. If you had one, I thought that it would probably be backed, so it wouldn't get shot. And that really backfired there. He blocked my M8 after.
But even so, the M8's lasted for a while. It's 22 minutes into the game that it goes down. Well, 21 minutes it went down. So would you still say that was a fair investment and it made its money back? Not too much of a big deal?
Yeah, it was a very good investment. I really don't need the M8 at this point.
So let's say that you hadn't stolen that pack because that was a stroke of good fortune. Let's say that you were right now packless. What would be your move there in terms of AT, especially considering there's now 2 Pumas on the field?
Well, I really had to make an AT gun from the mother pools. You can't really have no AT gun on the field versus a tier 3, especially against the threat of him having a stug out or even a stu if you guys blitz. You really need the AT gun out, so I would probably just make one of them from the mother pool.
More howitzer fire, keeping up the good pressure there.
And I'm going for the tank depot now because I want something mobile that can kill the Pumas, because he's holding the fuel now because of the Pumas, and I don't have any mobile that can go there and defend my rifles. So I need some kind of tank to really counter Pumas everywhere. Deny his tier 3 at all costs.
And would you always do that? Just considering the fact that you've also gone for down the infantry route, obviously, and you've unlocked ranges, you're just about a bit less than 3 CPs away from getting off-map combat group. Would there be any situation where you might just wait for the OMCG if you were closer, or do you think that Shermans and that kind of thing are pretty useful anyway?
Shermans are pretty useful in my opinion, so yeah, I would not wait for the OMCG, especially because you can get very bad luck with it. So it's better for you to get a consistent force before risking into the OMCG. Of course, there are those games that you don't have really any choice and you're just waiting for the double M10. But it's better to get the counters yourself, it's better to get units yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that especially in a tournament game, you wouldn't really want to risk getting a sort of a double AT gun, MG mortar core, and it would just be crippling at this point. Because, Symbiosis, for all the losses he's taken, he's now beginning to expand. I think he just dropped some artillery up in the top munitions point, but he's taking the fuel there just up in the north as well. And he just got these double flamer pyos.
Yeah, they just popped instantly, both of them actually. So there was the nice double timing on the 2 flamers, but I'm not exactly sure if they got much to do here. There's MGs and bars in the church and everything.
Probably a panic choice, like, goddamn the bars in the building.
Yeah.
Did surprisingly little damage.
Yeah,
but
he killed 2 guys.
Still happy.
I want to ask you about your sniper usage, because you got 15 kills on your sniper right now, which is really good. But even after getting the counter snipe, you don't seem to be plugging away with the sniper every chance you get. You take one shot here and there. Is that because you're afraid of Symbiosis rebuilding his sniper, or do you always play very passively just because it's better not to get rushed?
Because I know that Symbiosis is really stubborn with this tier 1 composition. I know that he gets sniper every time he loses one, so I know that he's going to get another. So that's why I really play safe with it.
Oh wow, and he has gotten another sniper actually. He just ran onto the field, decloaked, but I don't think that was in line of sight from your sniper, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was. He only
was, okay.
cloaked it near his grants, and I had sight to the grants.
Oh, you might
So
light him up
that's
with your
why-
rifles.
so
Getting
that's
around
why-
the corner.
Whoa.
So that's why I rush in with the rifles now. Try to get the counter snipe.
That could have been
Which-
game right there with another counter snipe so quickly after the last one. So you've
Yeah.
got your Hellcat out now, you've got a bit of a solid AT, you can actually begin to start fighting these Pumas, taking the fight to them. But even so, Symbiosis getting sort of equal, rough sort of map control. Is there any kind of extra element you need to add to your army now, or is it just sort of build the army, build the supply out upgrades, keep plugging away with the howitzer?
Well, right now I have a pretty good comp. I just need to get those vet on the rifles. Right now I am on a pretty good position, pretty good comp of the army. So it just really have to maybe even a Sherman to hold the two sides at the same time, because I need something to get up there and I need something to hold mid. So another tank would actually be more beneficial now, instead of doing just more snipers or rifle upgrades.
Well, actually, just as we talk about it, I think because you didn't have the fuel for Sherman, I think you've decided to go for that second sniper anyway, just to get a bit
Yeah.
more of the punishment on the ground. So, would you say that a second sniper might, sometimes it's you've sort of gotten it out of, you've got spare manpower and nothing else to do with it because you want to get as much rifle vet as possible, presumably.
You definitely want to do something with your manpower. You can't just sit there with 600 manpower and do nothing.
Yeah.
It's better to just use it to your advantage and try to cripple your opponent even more. So that's what I did. I had no fuel for the Sherman, and I knew that probably at the time that I had the fuel, I would have the manpower to do it. So why not? More manpower damage.
Do you have anything you prefer to use your spare manpower on? Is there something that's your go-to unit, or do you OP points, or is there something that you always get when you're floating, as you said, like 600 manpower? Get another one of these. Which one would that be? What unit do you
Well-
prefer to get an extra of?
I prefer the sniper on that kind of things, because sniper can do that drain of manpower the whole game, and it really sets you ahead. Two snipers, considering that the Grand Squad has 4 men, 2 shots, it's the instant retreat from the squad. So 2 snipers is really good thing, and you want to, if you have manpower to spare, you want to go for the second sniper.
Now you've actually you've been whittled down in your rifles. Actually, you lost 2 of them due to those Pumas catching you off on retreat there. Those nasty Pumas double.
Yeah.
So you're down to 2 rifles. What's your opinion as far as rebuilding rifles goes, especially into the late game?
Well, I always rebuild them. You really need, especially on this map, there are some maps that it's a bit, you can do a bit better without them. But in this map you got 3 main places to be at, and you really need a lot of forces, which is the middle part, the top part, and the bottom part, which he decapped my munition point, so I really needed that rifle back to defend it. While there are other maps that you don't really get punished by not having that forced rifle. But on this map it's really need to rebuild them.
So 4 rifles is just a magic number for you. You need to have those, at least in the sort of the early mid game. You need to have those 4 rifles.
Yeah. Especially because they transition to late game, well, if you vet them.
Of course, yeah. I mean, rifle vet's probably the most powerful in the game, really. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about actually is about grenades, because if we sort of wind back a year or so, your US play seemed well, quite a bit different from what we're seeing now. It was very much about the sort of getting those quick wins. It had a lot of grenade tech, early grenade tech. I mean, what made you decide to move away from that? Because that seemed to be working out quite well for you.
Yeah, I moved away from that because my opponents were already expecting that, so sometimes you want to switch your strategy. I still do that sometimes to surprise the opponents if they aren't expecting the grenades. It can do some really good damage after a big flank, and he doesn't expect grenades at all, and you just completely destroy them with 3 grenades at the same time. That can really set a game.
So it's not that you think the metagame has sort of shifted against them, it's just really that people are predicting it too well.
Yeah, if you play with the same strategy for a while, like Symbiosis does, you start to adapt and really get counters for it and expect the what your opponent is going to do next. So sometimes I like to change my strategy.
Okay. But you still reckon that going for those fast nades can work? It's
Yeah, it can definitely.
Okay.
We did have a few nice things from Symbiosis. He propped war some rifles away so he could recrew the mortar at the church. So he stole that back after it got decrewed by a Neville rocket. And he also built a bike after he saw you running around with your double snipers, forcing his grenadiers away from the left-hand side of the map over and over again. So he went ahead and got a bike. He's probably hoping to catch them off guard, which he does now a little bit, but a very quick retreat from you. He might get lucky and get one of them, but that's basically it.
Yeah, I tried to block the bike with the engineers and at the same time turn the AT gun
Nice.
to the retreat path so he wouldn't follow.
Oh, that's why. Oh, yeah, I saw that. You actually pointed the AT gun towards your base as you expected him to follow your snipers, I guess?
Yeah, but he got the damage engine from the engineers, so it really didn't matter.
Oh, wow, what happened to the MG? It just... the gun got destroyed by the Nebel barrage, actually, so there's no gun health on it, which means that the three guys just commit suicide for no apparent reason whatsoever. But I see you actually got an AT gun now, I guess against the Symbiosis' double stugs. Do you prefer to get like an AT gun and keep your army mixed up instead of just pumping out more TD units like Hellcats or Shermans?
The Hellcats aren't enough to deal with the stugs. The AT guns are really needed against stugs because of the front armor. Sometimes it's really obnoxious to fight them when you got only the tank depot units, because most of the time the bullets don't penetrate the armor. You really need the AT guns against heavy tier 3, which is what he's going to aim for.
And that thought about fighting Stugs with TD resonates quite well with me, because I faced Symbiosis in the Most Wanted Invitational tournament as well, and in my US game, I had a very nice US game, even I might say better US game. In fact, I actually capped the entire middle, including his cutoff, and it was all going fantastic. But I ended up in this situation where I was constantly plugging away, building loads of Hellcats against his Stugs, and I just kept on losing them. Because I wasn't thinking particularly logically at the time. I just thought, build more Hellcats, and well, I just ended up losing them all eventually.
Yeah, I seem to be seeing that on streams as well. When people have gone TD, they never ever get anything else from the motor pool. They just keep building TD units, and I guess DevM shows here in this replay how it's actually done. You can't get stuck in a mindset that I need to build more stuff because it's the highest tier. There's certain units which are just better against other units from the Wehrmacht army, like AT guns against Stugs, because Stugs fixed turret, they can't really circle strafe AT guns or anything, so I guess that's like the go-to hard counter, really.
Yeah.
Now, this is one question that Fatal and I always debate whenever we see a game with US versus Ver, and it gets to the stage in the game where the US player has unlocked OMCG, but he has all the tiers, so there's nothing that he's going to get from OMCG that he couldn't otherwise build manually. But what is your thought right now? I mean, you're floating quite a bit of manpower. You don't have the pop cap for OMCG yet, but let's say you do, because you will do soon once you've kept a couple of extra points. From this point, are you quite happy just to roll the dice and just flood the field with whatever you get? Or would there be situations where you might feel you need some specialist units?
You can get OMCG really anytime. It's not about only having the... I mean, I have LTR, so yeah, I can build whatever the OMCG can get up. But it's about having those units in that little time. You can have more units in the field. It's like you have no build time, so your opponent isn't expecting that much units around. So you just use the OMCG to surprise your opponent, kinda. So you use it to completely overwhelm your opponent in one big flank, and that's what I use it for. I use the MCG, and after I get it, I try to do a big flank and drive my opponent off the map with the extra units I get from it. And it works a lot of times, really. and it's what, in my opinion, the OMCG should be used for.
Oh, and you just taken one counter snipe, but I expect you're not too sad about it because you've still got a Vet 3 sniper. So it's not such a loss. But actually, here we go. I think this is the first OMCG of the game. You've got a Hellcat, an MA, a rifle, and a mortar. So it's a real mismatch of various different units. But I'm sure the mortar can come in use for counter-mortaring that Axis mortar. So not all bad.
Yeah, I was quite happy with that OMCG. So, as I said, I always try to get big flank after OMCG because of the different units. The number of units that my opponent has is quite minor to the ones I have. So I try to make some plays every time I get one out.
You always manage. You almost managed to crush the Axis sniper from Symbiosis with your Hellcat. But he just got away, and then the artillery started flying, so it was forced to retreat. But Puma goes down, but you traded a Hellcat for that kill, trying to kill the Stug as well and crushing the sniper, I guess.
Yeah, that trade was okay because I got to MCG, so I'm not really that worried about losing the Hellcats right now. And I'm using the off-map here to try to make this 2 turn around so I don't get his front armor.
He's actually just moved forward, but that's going to give you a clear shot to his rear, and you take it down, so that's a nice win for you again there. But it just feels like, you know, you can kill a unit from Symbiosis, and it still feels like he has a big army left. I mean, he's still got lots of Grens and things like that. And your army is, well, it's not bad. The unit composition is not bad at all. But, I mean, were you feeling just a little bit apprehensive about the sort of the lack of rifle vet? Because you don't have any vetted rifles, actually, at this point.
Yeah, I was quite apprehensive not having the vet, but then again I had the vet 3 sniper which took care of mostly of his infantry, so I really didn't need the rifles.
Okay, so you're not actually too upset about the loss of rifle veterancy as long as you've got a vetted sniper.
Yeah, and then now it's out to take care of all his infantry.
Okay, because I know a lot of players would think, you know, I don't have any Vet 3 rifles and we're 40 minutes into the game, you know, it's a lost game, what can I do, sort of thing. But actually, it's not too much of a big problem for you.
It's not if you're not that far behind, because vetted rifles give you kind of a comeback mechanism, because they are so strong at Vet 3 especially. But at this point, you don't really have to be worried. The sniper and the howitzer will do the work for you to kill his infantry, not the rifles. The rifles are kind of the mid shield and the main capture force. I really don't use them to fight that much this game.
So here comes the King Tiger. Now is on the field. You're going to chuck a sticky on there to just slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But at this point, would you say OMCG is enough to fight the KT, or are you going to need some specialist ATGs?
Well, versus the King Tiger, I like to have 2 AT guns at least, and since I'm not sure that might not come on the off-map, I like to build at least one of them manually instead of having it from the...
That's precisely what you are doing. You've just queued up 2 AT guns in the motor pool right now. So that's a really interesting choice, because I know most other players would just wait for the OMCG. They just wait for the OMCG and they'd roll it, and whatever they got, they just use that to try and fight with. And I know that even if you look at as high a caliber player as Aimstrong, for example, when he played Silence in the last game replays tournament, he had a game where he won due to the fact of OMCG. You know, he relied on OMCG rather than custom building anything. So I guess it's horses for courses, really. Whatever you are more comfortable with.
Yeah, although I like to be more secure about... I like to get the counters out before having the MCG. I want to counter what he's having and then use the MCG because of all that bad luck you can have. I prefer having the counter out, and the MCG kinda only is there to help as a bonus.
Interesting. So you've got that one of those first AT guns. They just take such a long time to build. You've actually cancelled the second one, which I imagine you've done that to free up. Yep, you have. Yep. So you've freed up some manpower. You've gotten yourself an MCG. So are we going to expect another big attack now? You're just going to push with everything?
Yeah, I'm going to try to push that KT off the field, and actually now he kills my sniper.
Oh.
Oh god, ballsy moves sometimes pay off, but this time was not one of them. That was pretty epic actually. That KT is a sniper on treads, really.
Oh, man.
Terrible.
I was kind of sad to lose that. The game would have ended sooner if it would have survived that. But still, I still have my howitzer, and that's what really matters. It's the most important thing I can have as for now, and it's one of the units I use more in this game at the moment as US. It's really a really good thing to have.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you use anything but infantry in the last few tournament games you've played. Have you just, like, you see no reason to really do it at this point in the metagame?
Yeah, I mean, the infantry doctrine has everything you can think of. You got the off-map party, which is kind of a strafing gun. You get the OMCG, which really pays for Pershing. You, instead of getting a tank, an OP tank, you get a pack of units which you can use to get all the map back, and I find it more reliable than the Pershing. Also, you get howitzer, which is of course what, in my opinion, makes it the best doctrine, which allows you to apply all the pressure you want the whole game by not losing anything. So and you can get those lucky shots. So your opponent is all the game afraid of the AOE, and you really, if you do an howitzer really early on the game, it can really do a lot of damage and win games. It's like 30 minutes 30 minutes into the game, and it already kills like maybe 20 units. That's already pays off for the howitzer.
And of course, you know, there's all the sort of the non-kill benefits, you know, forcing your opponent to retreat and forcing him to move around.
Yeah.
It's really inconvenient.
It's like a propaganda war too.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you get a lot of dice for your money. Although you do see some howitzers can meet a very early end. You know, some Puma or Stug rushes into the base. Are there any particulars you do to try and protect it against that, or do you just make sure that your tech is in the right place so that's not a risk anyway?
I many times protect my howitzer with mines. If you look now on the bottom side, I think that was one of my mines that is there with the crater, and yes. I got another one down. And I usually on this map put tank traps on the fuel, so he has to go all around that little edge road there, in the back of my base, below the fuel. And I put a mine there usually to cripple the engine of the vehicle that is coming. But on this match, in this particular match, I had no reason to do that, because I had him on the middle of the map the whole game. I had him contained in that part.
And you actually, you've just pulled the win through with
yeah.
Still with 340 VPs to spare. I mean, your army is sort of laughably small at this point. You know, you've got these 3 rifles, the Howie, and then a couple of MGs and a mortar, and that's it. But I suppose, you know, he didn't really have anything either, so it was really just a case of trading blows here, and you came out on top. But,
yeah, especially because of the howitzer, which is like the best thing you can have to trade blows.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got those 15 kills, and you know, all the sort of the non-kill benefit we were talking about. You know, it's just really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the howitzer actually caused quite a lot of vehicle damage as well. It seems to be. Did you target the Stugs and the Puma specifically when you saw them standing around getting repaired and stuff? Because it seemed like you hit quite a lot of his vehicles with your own howitzer.
I tried to aim for the vehicles. If you can delay the repairs, it's like they aren't even there. If he's repairing the vehicles all the time, he's basically not using them at that time. So keeping them under control and they're not full HPs is the best thing you can do with howitzer, possibly. Because yeah, I think 2 Pumas maybe being repaired, and he was not doing nothing with them and being arted all the time.
Oh yeah, because I see quite a lot in games that people just refuses to fire their on-map howitzer unless it's on stationary weapons like PAC and MGs, which I guess is like the really prime target for your artillery. But at the same time, as you used it in this game, as you say, you completely nullify 1 or 2 units if they're just sitting around getting repaired. And if he can't get any peace in mind to get them repaired while they're constantly getting artillery barraged, I guess that's 1 less unit to fight for the moment.
Yeah, but that's another thing you have to get right, because if you are careless about your artillery is going to move away the Pumas, you have to first be sure that he maybe has an engine damage already, and be sure that he's at a place that can maybe hit the infantry passing by. So on Symbiosis, since I have played this map many times, I know that that place is at around the cutoff. I know that the players repair their vehicles around maybe at a bit of the right of the cutoff, sometimes behind. So if you aim between those 2 parts, you can get the Pumas and you can get infantry that can be coming back from the base. So that's a 2 for 1.
Great stuff. I mean,
Hey guys.
See ya.
people normally repair their vehicles there. I'm thinking, I normally repair my vehicles there. Fuck. Too predictable. It's been great having you on, DevM. Really, really insightful as always. And I think we'll have to let you go. But there's all this stuff I want to ask you. But we will let you go. But thank you very much for coming on and joining us for another episode of Expert Insight.
Yeah, it was actually fun.
I hope we can have you on again sometime in the near future, and maybe for CO2 as well. You've planning to hit the competitive scene in CO2?
Yeah, I'm eager to try to be pro there too.
Hit it with a bang. That's what I like to hear, man. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.